Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the channel. It is September the 2nd, 2023, and it is in the 50s in North Carolina. Feels great. Well, I've got my 15-year-old son on the back of my Indian Roadmaster, and we are going to visit one of the local dealerships because periodically I get the fever. Yes, I'm afraid I get the fever, and sometimes having the fever doesn't make sense because I do really like my Indian Roadmaster. In 51 years of riding, I have owned tons of motorcycles, and overall this is by far my favorite. But I get the fever, and my own thrifty nature, nor do I feel like my budget would really allow for me to have more than one motorcycle at this time. I don't even have room in the carport for another motorcycle. A couple of three times in my life I've owned more than one at a time, but again, for me it makes more sense to only own one motorcycle. My visor fogged up a little bit. I hope my lens on my camera didn't fog up. That sometimes will happen when you go outside. So anyway, getting sidetracked. I've got the fever. If you've watched my channel before, you know that I love all kinds of motorcycles. I've owned multiple brands. I've owned Yamahas, Hondas. I've had a Kawasaki. I've had multiple Harley Davidsons. I think I've had 6 Harley Davidsons over the years. And I've owned 3 Indians, so multiple brands. I like all kinds. I do have 2 preferred brands, and those 2 preferred brands are the 2 American-made brands. I love both of them, and I have gone back and forth over the last 6 years or so between the 2 brands, the 2 American-made brands. Of course, obviously that's Harley Davidson and Indian. For the last almost 4 years, I've had this Indian Roadmaster almost 4 years. I said it's early September. By November, I'll hit the 4-year mark, which is the second longest period of time I've ever owned a single motorcycle. So the last 4 years almost, I've exclusively, well, really more than, well, no, I'd say last almost 4, I've exclusively been on an Indian. And but I like Harley Davidsons as well. I think there certainly are ways that Indian by far outshines Harley Davidson, and then there are numerous ways that a Harley Davidson outshines the Indian manufacturer. So again, I've kind of got the fever, but if I bought something I would need to trade, and to me it's always so much easier if you don't have a trade, because without a trade I talk out the door price, and I recommend that to everyone. Some of these manufacturers, the dealerships, they will add on all kinds of extra fees. So you look at the MSRP listed on the manufacturer website, and they may add an extra $5,000, or well, maybe not that much, or close, so several grand on top of the price, not counting tax, title, and license. I mean, since the pandemic, most brands have added an additional surcharge. Some models, that's an extra $1,000 without any explanation what that charge is for. And then most dealers charge freight, they charge prep on top of that. They can charge ridiculous amounts of money for documentation fee. And I'm not talking about the money that goes to your title, goes to the state for your title or your registration, sales tax. No, the documentation fee is essentially what they're charging you to fill out the paperwork. And there was a time where nobody even looked at the documentation fee because, you know, $50 or whatever. I mean, they spend a little time filling out the paperwork for you when you make a purchase. But some dealerships I've seen as much as $300 for a documentation fee, which is insane. So all of that is negotiable. Of course, some states says, oh, the law doesn't say how much we charge for documentation fee, but we have to charge everybody the same price. So we have to charge you that whatever their magic, let's say $200. And that's when I said, well, you know, you leave that on there, you just dealer discount the bike by $200. And that's the reason, again, I negotiate out the door price. But as I said, if I were to buy another bike, I need to trade. And then it gets far more complicated because, yeah, some dealers will show you a decent trade-in allowance on your motorcycle, but they up the price of their motorcycle considerably above MSRP, and then all those additional fees that I mentioned that they add on. So if I'm trading a bike, I talk, I'll give you my bike and X number of dollars. And you know, if you owe some money on your bike, hopefully you have some equity in it. I still owe just a little bit on this one, but I've got money in savings. I could pay this one off. I could pay this one off with a hefty down payment, or I could just, you know, pay this one off, trade in, and not have a payment at all, depending on what kind of deal I make. So, and then they wonder, well, how much you owe on your bike? I said, well, that doesn't affect how much my trade-in allowance. Well, you know, we need those numbers for the paperwork. I said, well, I'm not going to reveal that at this time, not while I'm negotiating, because sometimes if they know how much your payoff is, I think they try to offer you, you know, as close as they can to your payoff, which if you're upside down, that's a good thing. But if you've got equity, you know, well, you know how it works. They want to get full retail for their bike, but they want to give you wholesale for yours, and I get that. They want to make a full profit on the new bike. They take yours in for trade-in. They also, of course, want to make whatever their gross profit margin is for a used bike. I get all that, but that means you look up the NADA on your trade-in. You know, that's full retail. That's what the dealer might sell it for. They're not going to give anywhere near that much money for it. Which again makes things complicated. For example, I love my Indian. I'm not going to give it away. Now, there have been times, you know, I had the fever so bad that I would take less for maybe for my trade-in than I wanted. Or maybe I'd had a bike that had some issues and I resolved the issues. But, you know, once a bike starts having issues, you always wonder what's next. Now, I'm really fortunate with this motorcycle. I've got 56,000 miles. Which is certainly, if I do try to make a trade, will affect my trade-in value. I've owned it almost 4 years. By the time, you know, a couple of months down the road, I'll hit the 4-year mark. I'll be, you know, pushing 60,000 miles, and they've really been trouble-free. I did have one issue with the docking hardware that holds the saddlebag. I had the quick release. My bike, I can't remember, it seemed like within the first year, I have to go back and look at my maintenance paperwork. First year, my left saddlebag fell off going highway speed. I was not a happy camper, and it's remote locking, so it was being drugged by the wire. But I got it fixed, got that resolved, and have had literally no issues with this bike at all. It's never left me on the side of the road. Now, my battery, I squeezed more life out of it than probably and should have allowed. There were some times it had difficulty starting, at least once with my new battery. It's having difficulty starting it, and of course popped the seat off and snugged down the terminals, and I was good to go. So this bike's been very dependable. I love this motorcycle. If they don't, you know, if they offer me a lowball price for my trade-in, I'll just keep riding. Even if they offer me a good trade-in allowance, I'm not going to pay those ridiculous additional fees that, you know, most dealers charge. Again, it's just so much easier if I sold my bike, then, you know, just took my money to the dealership and said, hey, this is what I'll give you. Again, I negotiate out the door. So anyway, I'm going to go look. I look sometime for a couple of years before I pull the trigger. I'm not just dying to buy a bike. I do have the fever, but I love what I've got. So I guess he's gonna let me go. You know, if I can't make a deal, no hard feelings with me. I mean, I know they got to make a profit, and I don't want to give my bike away. Well, we made it to Cox Harley Davidson in Ashburn. By the way, North Carolina must like burros. I live just south of Roxborough. There's a Greensboro, Ashboro, probably several other boroughs. But the reason I wanted to come to this dealership, one is it's family owned. Many Harley dealerships are now owned by investors, corporations. Maybe someone's got a bunch of car dealerships and they want to add some Harley dealerships to their portfolio. But this one's family owned. I believe it was started in 1961 by the grandfather. In time, the son took over and became general manager and operated the business, and now I think the grandson runs the business. So I love family owned businesses, and I like the fact that they put their price of their bikes on their website. To me, if you're going to advertise something for sale, put the price, put the miles. Most dealerships will not put the price because they want to, you know, move the numbers around. But anyway, I'm going to go in here and look at a bike, and as I said on the way up here, it'd have to be a great deal for me to pull the trigger because I do really like my Indian Roadmaster. So let me go in and talk to a salesperson and see what we can do. Well, we made it back from Cox Harley Davidson in Ashboro. I'm still on the Indian. They actually said they were going to shop around, see what kind of price they could get me trade in on my Indian. They probably won't offer what I'd like to get for it, and I'm of course not going to give the bike away. I really like my Indian. When I find out if they gave me a decent amount trade in, I'll let you know. But the sales staff was great. The salesperson I worked with was named Tara. She was great. I met the sales manager, met the owner, general manager, which was, like I said, that's been in that family. That dealership's been in that family since 1961, so that's incredible. Had a great ride over there. Even if I keep what I have, had a good time. I met some folks from another Christian motorcycle ministry there and made some good contacts and had a good little ride to Ashboro and back. I think we rode 187 miles today. I'll keep you posted if I buy another bike or just keep what I have. Well, I thought I'd do some follow-up remarks. The salesperson from Cox Harley Davidson in Ashboro did call me back the same day with a trade-in allowance. They offered a decent amount for my trade-in allowance. Of course, if I decide to pull the trigger, I try to work a little more on the deal. But as you can see, I still have my gorgeous Indian Roadmaster. I'm just having a hard time deciding. I love my Indian. I like the street glides. I really like the ultra limiteds. Of course, they're quite a bit more expensive than the street glide. So I still haven't decided. What do you think I should do? Should I just keep my Indian? Should I go for the street glide, the road glide, or just go all out and get the ultra limited? Be sure and remember, if you like to ride, ride as much as you can, because one day we're all going to be too old to ride.
Be sure to like and subscribe.